Welcome back. This video will explain the process of using operators while in find mode. Using operators is a bit confusing at first, but once you learn operators, I think you'll find them to be a very powerful tool when you're searching for patient records. I wanted to let you know that you can also go to the Help menu and FileMaker Pro Advanced Help. That will help you to find information that's a bit beyond what this video will cover. We're going to touch on some of the more important operators, but for example here, finding text and characters. If you want to take the time to learn this, I remember years ago when I started learning it myself, it was a bit overwhelming, but then as I gradually caught on, I really have found these tools to be very helpful. So please look at those if you want to be more of a power user. Let me give you an example of how this works now. In find mode, you'll see the operators option, but you won't see it in regular browse mode. So let's go into into find mode, and now you'll see this little button here called operators. When we click on that, we see a number of different choices, and again I'll touch on some of the more important ones. Match whole word, or match empty, or match entire field. So for example, if I wanted to find everyone named Mary, and if I just type Mary here, let's see how many records we find. There are 20 Marys in the system, and I see Mary and Mary Lou, Mary Ann spelled two different ways, etc. So there are 20 records again. Let's do this again, but now I'm going to put an equal sign in front of Mary, which means find that and match that word, and when I perform the find, instead of 20 I now have 17. So I don't have any Mary Ann's as one word anymore, but I still have Mary space Ann. But all of the words for Mary are independent and just the word Mary, if that makes sense to you. There's three patients that are removed from this list who don't have simply the word Mary as their part of their name. I'm going to do another search, and I'm going to say I want to find not just exactly Mary, but I want the entire field to match what I'm about to type in. So let's do it again. Find. And I can insert the operator here or just type it in, two equal signs, and then type in the word Mary. And let's see, instead of 20 or 17, let's see how many we get. Now we get only 14, and all of the Marys are gone that were Mary Lou or Mary Ann or anyone else, because I've done 3 different searches. Find anything that has Mary in it of any sort, anything that has Mary as the first word, regardless of what follows it, or two equal signs will find just the entire contents of the field would be Mary. So that might be helpful. Now I don't know if I have any in my record here. I'm just going to do a quick search for the word Smith, for example. Well, there's only 2 of them, but imagine that there were a Smithson or a Smithers and you didn't want those. Well, you could do a search for equals equals, or I think even the case of equals, and find equals Smith, and it would get rid of Smithers and Smithson, if that makes sense. Let's do another search, use another operator here. So down here I'm going to go to operators and find duplicate values. Well, I'm going to do that in a crazy place. I'm going to say exclamation point. Again, I can manually type it in from the keyboard, or I can select it from here. I want to find any patients who share an identical street address. They may be even in a different city, but in this case, let's see what we get. So we have a number of them, but I want to sort or arrange them so I can see them side by side. And I can see that I have 36 patients. That means 18 individual addresses in here at least, but maybe the patients live in a retirement center or maybe a mobile home park or whatever it is. But all of these match exactly, as you can see, because I did a search for duplicates. Now we do have a duplicate check in HearForm, and that'll check for patients based on their name and and their address as well. But this special character, the exclamation point, can come in handy sometimes. Let's just do this again right here. Find duplicates. Not so helpful in the last name field, but I just want to give you an idea. So there are 232 in this case, but when I sort them, and I'll go back to the first row just to show you, I have a lot of patients named Adams, but all of these have at least one duplicate with them, if that makes sense. So sometimes that might come in handy. Let's continue on. And in our operators area, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Well, those can be used in date fields, in number fields, or in text fields. For example, I'm going to do a search, and this is a little bit confusing, but I'm going to do a search for all patients whose last name are greater than the letter A. And we'll see what we get. Okay, I found them, but again, they're unsorted, so I'm going to arrange them. And you'll notice something when I go back to the first row here. The question is, if I did a search for all patients who are greater than A, then why am I showing a lot of different patients whose last name have the letter A in them? And that's because when you're searching text for greater than A, Abramo actually is greater than A, because AB is greater than the letter A. So if a patient, highly unlikely, were named Douglas A, then it wouldn't have found them. But anything greater than A, including anything after just the letter A, will show up. So if you don't want any patients who have a last name of letter A, then you could instead say, find anything greater than B, and that will then dismiss all of the A patients. So let's again sort those, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's go back to our first row, and now we start with the BAs, if that makes sense. So you can search greater than a text area. I can search greater than a date. So let's do that as well. I want to find greater than. I could say greater than or equal to. Sometimes that might come in handy. Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to there. You may want to type that in, select it from here instead of typing it in. But I can say find everybody who is greater than just a year, like 2000. Let's see if I have any hits. I can't remember, but I do have 7 hits where all of these patients are greater than the year 2000, and that would mean only starting with 2001 in this case. So I can do that. I can search number fields as well. I don't have any number fields on here, but for example, I could find all patients in the financial module who owe greater than $99, or as you'll see in a moment, who have a range. So let's look at that. So when I look here, I have a range, 3 dots, 3 periods. So I could find everybody who owes me between $99 ... and $200, for example, or whose date of birth was between 1934, I can just put the year in this case, 3 dots, I put 4 accidentally, and 2000, something like that. Now watch what happens when I leave the field. I'm going to click out of the field, and notice that the program added an asterisk and a slash and another asterisk. Let's see if I can zoom in and show you that a little bit better. So all I had to do is put the year, and that gave me a range. So let's just perform that find, and now I have patients whose birthdays are in that period of time. So that's very helpful. You can also do, when I'm doing a search for let's see, I can't really do it here, but if I wanted to do it for greater than a particular month, if a patient purchased or something, had a delivery date, I can just do a symbol like greater than 3, and watch what happens when I leave the screen. It adds the rest for me. As long as it's in the year that you're in, this wouldn't work for 2018 back, but if I just put greater than 3, it assumes that you want anything greater than any day, that asterisk here, any day in the month of March for this year. It adds the rest for me. So try that occasionally, and you might find that helpful as well. So continuing on, let's look at a couple of other operators here. I could put in today's date, and that's just, for example, let's just do that with the operator itself first. It's really just 2 slashes from your keyboard, the same key as the question mark. So putting that in, of course, it's not great to put that in the date of birth field because that would mean somebody's born today, but it could be a delivery date of today or an invoice of today, that sort of thing. But also keep in mind that you also have this insert menu where you can insert the current date. That's the way I generally do, and that's the control key and dash on your keyboard. The dash is right next to the 0, and that'll just put whatever the date is. As you can see, this is January 1st here. So that's another thing to do. Let's continue on a little bit, and we can find invalid date, but I'm not going to cover that very much here. I will cover these last 2 here in particular, and that is the character. So if I wanted to find, let me back up just a little bit and say I wanted to find people who have a zip code with 5 digits. I can enter this @ symbol just like for an email, and I can say find everybody who has 5 digits in their zip code, and there they all are. So they aren't going to have any 9-digit zip codes in that way, but I could redo that and say find everyone with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because I want to include that dash. If I just did 9, that probably wouldn't work. So let's see what we get. And we get just 2 patients who have the zip +4 there. So just another way of doing that, and it's much more advanced if you want to search, again, the help, how the @ symbol and sometimes the pound symbol might help. But my favorite, one of my favorites anyway, is to find patients who, let's go back to the home screen, who have anything in a particular field. I don't care what it is. It can be a single character, but here's a way I would do that. I could say find anybody with a serial number. That means they probably have a hearing aid. So I'm just going to put an asterisk. So I just type that in, but here it says 0 or more characters. I'm not sure why it says 0 or more, but it's basically any characters that are in there. And so I'm going to do a search for that, and it finds 402 patients who have some kind of a serial number, just like that. Now I can toggle to see everyone who doesn't have a serial number, or toggle back to everyone who does. But I just did a quick search there. I could do a very similar thing with, if I wanted to find everybody with an email address, I wouldn't know what to search for, but I can do a search for an asterisk. And now we have 16 patients in this case, not very many, but who have some kind of an email address there. Okay, so that's just another way that you can use it, and it could go on and on. So the wildcard really helps when you're doing searches. So again, there are some other ones. I'd like you to research that on your own if you care to. It's in the help section, and these characters really come in very handy when you're searching text fields, sometimes date fields, and number fields. I think you'll appreciate knowing.